Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every Thursday, we chat with a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey in the world of martial arts and anything else we end up chatting about. This one might actually be one of my shortest intros yet. My guest, well, he tells me he's pretty boring, so I guess we're going to find that out for sure. He's married with no kids, lived and worked in LA for 28 years, and relocated this past summer to Raleigh, North Carolina. In addition to being a martial artist, he's also a podcaster. Please welcome to the show, Ando. How are you doing today, sir?
Mr. Doucette, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
No, I appreciate your time. And what we do with my guests, the first thing we do is jump into the beginning. I want to know where that first spark was. Where was that first interest in martial arts? Where did it come from? And kind of what made you want to get involved with it?
Absolutely. And thus begins the boring tale. A tale that you've probably heard many times by now as a podcaster. I saw Bruce Lee and I just thought, holy smokes. I'm an insecure young man, and that guy looks very confident. He's in great shape. I'm not a big guy. He's not a big guy, but he's just got so much confidence and so much body control. How did he do that? And martial arts seems to be his methodology. So I, therefore, must get into martial arts to acquire that kind of confidence and control. So that's what started it. Absolutely.
So do you remember where you was it like Enter the Dragon? Was it
Say yes, because once you see one, there must have been some film festival on TV, so they might have been playing 2 or 3 in a row. But definitely Enter the Dragon was where he was at his calmest and coolest and the most professional of the movies. I mean, to be fair, I'm not a real fan of the movies.
Right.
The fights are all kind of silly and all that. But again, just as an individual, I just thought, wow, this guy. I could be like this guy. I can't be like Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time. There's so many other people that I thought were cool, but I did not see myself walking in those shoes. But Bruce, for some reason, I just thought there was something accessible there. Like, I can see this guy's a hard worker, and he's working against the odds. He's the underdog here, but he is making it work, and that's what I've got to get into. So that led to finding that book series at the time, Bruce Lee's Fighting Method. And there were 4 volumes of that. So that was my first Bible. I went and I found those books at a boxing gym, a bookstore, kind of slash bookstore. They had some books in the front of this boxing place. And I bought those books and then retreated to my garage. And I figured I can get all this myself. I don't need to go to a school. At the time, I didn't have a car or any money anyway. So I just thought I'd make a dojo out of my garage. So with some friends and some gloves, it was going pretty well, actually, for a couple of years. I thought, this is not so bad. I'm getting flexible and strong. I bought a Kung Fu outfit. I thought I was making real progress. But then I saw Above the Law with Steven Seagal at some point when that came out. And I realized, like, okay, here's another version of a Bruce Lee where he's got the same confidence for sure. He seems to be very in control of these situations, but his movement is completely different. His body type is completely different. But I have no idea what he's doing. He's not doing the high kicks. He's not taking off his shirt much. What's this? So that got me into the Aikido world. I went looking for that. Outside the garage is the point. So Bruce Lee got me into martial arts, and then Steven Seagal, Above the Law, got me out of my garage and started looking for an actual teacher in an actual school.
Nice. And then where did you find that actual first school?
Well, at the time, I could not find any Aikido. It wasn't as popular at the time. It was still growing. But I did find a Taekwondo school that was accessible, and I didn't know anything about Taekwondo, but they had a weight set. So I thought, well, even if I don't know what this art is, at least I can lift weights while I'm here. So that's something. I'll get something for my money. So I started with the Taekwondo. It was the ITF version. And I just fell in love with that process right off the bat. I was like, ooh, I wasn't from a military family, and there's something about the get in line and shut your mouth and here's the way this works. You got to know this to get that. And I just kind of, I really liked I was very compulsive about that. Oh, okay. How do you get that stripe? How do you get that belt? And fell in love with that whole system. And for, 4 years plus, that was that was pretty good. I was happy with that.
Nice. And what rank did you get to in ITF?
I just earned my first degree in that, and but by that time, I mean, I knew somewhere in the high reds, whatever it was before black belt, that I'll finish this up. I'll get to the black belt because that was like the compulsive side of it. But I could tell that I wanted something a little bit different than the Taekwondo format. Right. Again, no hating on Taekwondo. I've made videos about that before. It changed my life, and I believe it still changes many people's lives for the better. But for my development, it got me to a place where I was like, oh, okay, that got me this far. I think I need to go someplace else to go to the next step. And that's what I did. Moved out to Los Angeles and spent some time just looking around at every style. I had a better idea of what I was looking for. I'd also taken a little Aikido at that time because, as it happened, the Taekwondo school that I found eventually hosted an Aikido teacher. So for the last 3 years, for 3 of the 4 years I was in that Taekwondo school, I was also doing Aikido on a part-time basis on the side. So I kind of got to see 2 very different arts up close, and then realized that neither one would take me exactly where I wanted to go.
Okay. So just to back up a little bit, now I'm assuming you said above the law. So I'm assuming when you started Taekwondo, I was in the mid to late 80s, probably?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah.
For some of our younger listeners, talk a little bit about what some of those classes were like back then. I started Taekwondo in 92. And I heard the stories about, the 70s, 80s, and just how it changed each decade. And just a little bit about what the experience was like in some of those classes back then in the mid to late 80s.
Sure. Well, this was ITF, and this was under the lineage of Park Jong-soo, who's one of the first real powerful figures in the Taekwondo world. Mm-hmm. And the style itself was kind of old school, low stances, long, strong, big hip movements, not like the walking stances and the more bouncy style of sparring that is far more popular now. So very much like Shotokan, very mm-hmm. much had that kind of aesthetic to it. I'm not going to tell any kind of stories like, oh, it was really blood and guts then. We were smashed into cinder block walls, knuckle push-ups. No, it wasn't like that. I was lucky to find a really good teacher who was patient with me as I was trying to figure out my young manhood. And again, it was just enough discipline to change my life, but not too much to break me and scare me off. And I think, so I'm not sure what else. Yeah, I don't recall too many concussions. I don't recall being dragged out unconscious very often. But for me, it was more of the emotional challenge of just shutting up, listening, following directions, meeting someone else's standards, being told that's not good enough and having to come back and suck that up. I had a lot of ego. I was very cocky, and to have that, because, Bruce Lee made me cocky because he was cocky. So I was like, oh, that's the way to be. I'm in my garage. I can do anything I want. I'm the king of the world. And then when you get into a school and you're a white belt, you can't come in with that attitude. I was quite the opposite. So That was a real culture shock. Like, oh, okay, hang on. You can't run around here and you're not the king. So again, emotionally and psychologically, that's really what changed my life by going through the Taekwondo program. The physical fitness aspect, I was already in pretty good shape, so that wasn't so much about that. So for me, that's what I would emphasize. It was just the discipline and the character building that really changed me.
Nice, I like that. All right, then you said you moved to LA, and then what? After experimenting and looking around a little, what was the next school or style you settled on?
Yeah, well, I eventually, it took me a while to find it. I gave everything a fair chance. I knew better what I was looking for, which is definitely something a little more self-defense oriented, a little more hands-on, a little more partner practice, going to the ground, throws, sweeps. I wanted the whole thing. Hapkido came close, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. And eventually I found kind of a lesser-known style, sister art of Choi Li Foot called Sansu. And it was very big in LA for a time. And and that one's held my interest all this time. I'm still involved with that art. I still follow a lot of those principles. And of course, I've added on some things along the way. But I kind of switched over to being, I'll call it, a Kung Fu man.
Okay, nice. And then at what point in your martial arts career did teaching become an interest of yours? When did you start teaching? And obviously in your garage, you were working out with friends. I'm assuming there was some teaching involved in that. But
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, the teaching is something natural. Maybe that's not true for everyone, but to me, teaching is synonymous with sharing. You just, if in the garage, I'm the one who owns the book, I'm the one who saw this drill, so I guess I'll share what I just saw in this book. I'm not teaching. That might be a little bit arrogant, but hey, I'll be the one who shows it today. But if someone's on a wrestling team and they have a cool double leg they want to show, great, well then let's share that. And then we have that kind of club feel. But then as you go along, of course, when you're in a ranked program, if you're the intermediate belt and there's a beginner, the instructor will often say, why don't you go show the beginner something that they can do? So you kind of take them under your wing and kind of let them follow you a little bit. And I love that. I find it very natural. I guess that sounds like patting myself on the back. I enjoy the sharing of it. I figured out really early on that by explaining things and breaking things down to different people in different ways, it made my technique better because I had to understand it better. So I fell in love with that saying that teaching is learning twice. Nice. I say that to myself all the time. If you get a chance to teach, good, because now I get to learn it twice. I get to do it and I get to explain it. So I'm all for teaching and making people teach because it gets them out of their own issues and then seeing the same art from a different perspective, their students' perspective. And I've just never stopped. Eventually making it more of a professional interest. Yeah.
I know one thing I noticed was I went back one time and looked at my notebook from my first, I forgot how many belts, probably through blue or purple belt before I started helping teach in class. And then I looked at my notes afterwards from the same techniques, and just so different how you explain it once you've taught it to other people. Just, for myself, it was so basic when it was just myself. And then it was so more in depth after I'd started teaching it. So yeah, it definitely improves your technique immensely.
And I think at some point, any martial artist who's listening to this, you have to make that decision whether you're into martial arts for yourself or you're into it for also bringing others along with you, whether that means just being a great senior class member to help people in your own school, a good role model, or that means opening up your own school, your own club, because there's a big difference between coming to class and just getting the information that you particularly need, that I want. It's just all about me. I'm just trying to develop myself, and that's fine. Or do I need to not only learn this lesson to make it work for me, but how do I make this work if I'm smaller or bigger or slower or less athletic or older or scared or aggressive? You have to kind of look at every technique from everybody's point of view, which again, I think gives you a deeper understanding of the art overall anyway. So there's an advantage to it. But yeah, if you want to be a professional teacher, you have to have that extra part of your notebook where you're making those extra notes like, well, if you're smaller, do it this way. If you're bigger, try it that way. You need to have that part of your brain open, I think, all the time.
So what do you think has changed about your teaching style over the years?
I'm definitely more patient. And I guess that also means I'm more patient with myself. It's all kind of mirrors each other. I used to really think that people were lazy or not paying attention if they didn't get it right away. And of course, I didn't get things right away. I'm kind of a slow learner myself. But once I get it, I like to think I've got it. But I'm not the quickest to pick things up. I'm not really a natural athlete. So over time, having worked with a large number of students, now I really see the range of different issues that people come to you with, whether that's just the physical, but usually it's more the psychological or the emotional, whether it's body awareness or whether it's fear of something, or they've had an injury that they're trying to protect and you don't even know about it. It's an emotional injury, something happened to them when they were a kid or in high school or just the other day. And a lot of those things people don't even tell you. They don't present and say, okay, here are all my darkest, most scarred memories. They just show up, and if anything, put on an opposite front. They say, hey, everything's fine, I want to do this. But then their actions are completely the opposite. They're not working on it. They're not listening. They're not doing what you thought. And so in the old days, I used to just assign that to kind of low character, like, oh, well, you're a liar, or you're lazy, or there's something wrong with you. And now I realize, oh, no, because I'm only looking at it one way. Like, it's just a physical thing. Just come in and do this. Now I see how linked the physicality is to the emotional side of you and the psychological side of you. And if you're not, as a teacher, sensitive to that, then you'll lose the student, or you're just going to make their lives worse because you keep frustrating them with a standard that they can't meet. So you do have to kind of back up a second and say, I know that they've heard me say this. I can see they're kind of doing it, but they're not quite in it. Why is the question? And then start finding out clever ways to get them to talk a little bit, or to start assessing their personality a little bit and say, why do you always back off when it comes to physical contact? Why does the loud voice frighten you? Why do you shut down when the technique becomes multiple steps instead of a single step? There's a million different variations on it, but ultimately I've become far more interested in the person as a whole than just, hey, let's talk about techniques and teach techniques.
I like that. When did the decision come to decide to open your own school?
Well, that's just kind of that organic thing. When I was lucky enough being in LA to find Don Barnes Karate Kids, a family-owned string of martial arts schools catered to kids. And when I had a chance to own one of those locations, I thought that would be great. Along the way, being able to train all the staff and work with the staff and then have my own private clients on the side with adults. It was the next natural step. I do believe that you should, if you really can, if you can make a living with martial arts, then why not? It only makes me a better, I think, teacher to practice as much as I possibly can. So, again, if you I feel bad if you're a teacher who loves martial arts, but you have to have this other 9 to 5, and you'd rather be training, you'd rather be practicing, and you're bringing as much as you can to your students. But when you're a teacher at heart, you're a sharer. You want to share as much as you can. So if you can set your life up in a way where you can be a professional teacher, have your own school, I'm still very motivated to do that, because that only gives me more time to research things, experiment with things, and then come back and share more things. So it just seems necessary at this point. I'm going to still fight like hell to get a new school going here in my new home, and after COVID, and keep that dream alive. I really don't want to have to step backwards and step out of the martial arts to make a living.
I suppose when you're used to it, doing it for that long, and so is it a lot more opened up out there in Raleigh, I suppose, since it's been almost 2 years since COVID hit us? I mean, is it a good possibility you can get something going?
For 6 months. We've been out here 6 months, my wife and I, and I'm hesitant to sign a 5-year lease at the moment,
right?
Because it's very difficult to deal with landlords. We have multiple locations, and that's always a nightmare. Each one has its own separate nightmare to try to break a lease, or, hey, give us some relief here. We're all suffering. So to jump into a brand new lease situation where I'm not sure if there's a new variant coming through and people are going to be shut down again or locked down again, it's not a great time, I think, to sign a lease.
Right.
However, and I also wasn't sure if we're going to stay in the area. We just moved all the way across the country. So my wife and I kind of gave ourselves a little float time to get to know the area, get to know what's needed here, if there's any call for what I would like to offer. So we're at the end of that period now. It's the end of the year, so it's a new year. Now's the time to start planting some roots, and I think we're gearing up now for the new year to start looking around, start maybe renting a facility from someone else, and build up a student body.
Oh, yes. There you go. Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, like in my area, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot more of like school sharing spaces where you have a Taekwondo school, a boxing school, and a Hapkido school under the same roof. Each doing 2 nights a week type thing. So I think
it could be a hidden blessing in that respect, to bring martial arts together, like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Break down some walls. I think that's always great. I love that idea that you could have stuff like a college, because the first school that I found, I'm kind of spoiled, because usually you hear the story in the old days where, no one was allowed to cross train, and, it was very, very segmented. But I grew up in that school, that first school that I found. Technically, it was a judo school that was renting out its mats to a Taekwondo program and an Aikido program, and eventually an old Japanese style jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, of course, there's a little bit of backbiting and sneering at each other, but we're all under the same roof, and you can't help but interact with each other and kind of go to each other's seminars and pick up a little of this, a little of that. So there was always, I grew up in the idea that, we could all get along and learn from each other. So nowadays, that's become far more prevalent to see Muay Thai and BJJ, MMA, all kind of mixing up together, that model. So I think that's great. And if COVID has forced some people to join forces, then terrific.
The current Taekwondo instructor that I've been with since '94, that's my core style. And we've take part, like you said, we've done seminars with like 15 different styles, a full weekend seminar, and bringing in people who do Hapkido and Judo and Aikido and Kumdo and Aido and all kinds of styles, and just together sharing knowledge and stuff. And it's, to me, that's what martial arts is about. So
I mean, it's easy to say, but I try to get that message out as much as I can, like on YouTube comments when people come in hot for one style over another. And I'm like, the battle here is not from one martial arts style against another. The battle is all martial artists against all the non-martial artists, the people who think we're all crazy. They don't know what style you're part of. Yep. Either you're representing martial arts as a whole well, or you're not. And if you're sitting around insulting each other and bashing each other, you're just making everybody look bad. We should all be standing together to get as many people involved into the arts in general as possible. I don't care. And I've always believed that. I mean, I meet as many martial artists as I can. So if I have a student and they say, I really want to bang, I want to stand and punch and bang, bang, bang. Like, I'm not going to do that with you, but I know a gym. I know this guy. He's great. You should go over there. I have no problem with that. To me, you should know everyone in your community so you can help refer each other. Like a doctor, it's like, okay, well, you need a surgery on this. That's the specialist. You should go over there for that. Oh, you want to do ground stuff? Well, you should go over there and do that. We should all help each other in that way.
Yeah, in the same way, whenever I hear a new school opening in my area, I'm lucky in the area I'm in, we have about 30 to 35 martial arts schools within about a 30-mile radius. And whenever I hear a new one opening, I always reach out, just, hey, welcome. I, go in and introduce myself and like, hey, anything we can do. And of course, now, of course, I was like, hey, I have a podcast if you want to come on and talk about your school and stuff like that. And, you know, and whatever. But yeah, it's for the most part, most of them take a while. A couple are a little standoffish and stuff. You know, it's a few of them are like, you know, our style and our style only, and they won't go to any open events or any other tournaments. And I'm like, well, then you're not going to grow. So,
well, I love that you make that gesture. That's really wonderful.
So talk about the podcast, kind of, you know, how the idea came from and just talk a little bit about that.
Well, perhaps like you, I don't know, because you've started right off with interviews and I didn't. It was really more of a matter of, God, I love this stuff so much. And again, I'd like to share if I can. And I like to talk and I like to go as deep as I can. My wife doesn't want to hear one word of this crap. So what else can I do? And this wonderful technology exists. I'm like, well, I think I could do that. I can just sit with a microphone and talk about things that I think are important or meaningful or change my life. To me, it's just another form of sharing in a different format. And so I started that a number of years ago now. I try to do one a month for all these years. And it's just been a nice little retreat for myself just to kind of say, okay, I got something on my mind. I'd like to just go off on this for a while and get it off my chest, put it out there. And we're not setting records or anything like that, but the people that I meet through the podcast who come to me from the podcast audience, we always have, I think, a very nice relationship because this format gives you that chance to really go deep. When you have people trapped in their car for half an hour or longer on a trip or a plane, whatever they've downloaded, wherever they've downloaded it to, it's such a nice format. You know, you're right in someone's ear, that nice feeling of just intimacy where you can really just speak heart to heart. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the format. So congratulations on your show.
Oh, thank you. And just for the listeners, yours is called Fight for a Happy Life, which is, it's a good show. I mean, check it out. I've listened to about 7-8 episodes so far, and it's one I've subscribed to. And my problem is I subscribe to about 40 podcasts, so to try to get through all of them. But I know you mentioned
so many to choose from.
Exactly. There's so many good ones and so many good martial arts ones too. But like me, like my podcast came from, I actually had the idea for a radio show back in the mid 90s when I was working in radio. And I couldn't get any stations to do it. And I just kind of kept it in the back of my head. I tried every few years. And finally, when, I talked about the podcast, and finally when COVID hit, I'm like, now's the time to do it. And I went and I actually pre-recorded 25 interviews before I launched the show and just started dropping an episode a week. So
wow, you are patient. Yeah. That's incredible.
I know. I'm at, I think I just released episode 40 or 41 last week. So
congratulations.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, and I try to do it. It's a mixture of people that a lot of the guests have never heard of and mixed in with people that a lot of them probably have heard of. I've been lucky to get some big names, but I've also interviewed all my previous instructors. I interviewed my first Tung Sido instructor, my first Shotokan instructor, my Hapkido instructor. So it's, nice.
I love that.
Yeah. It's been fun. And like I said, I just love, and like I said, I worked in radio for 30 years. So the interview part's easy for me. I had all the equipment because I also do voiceover. So I have a full studio and I've been ready to do it and stuff. And I love talking to people, but kind of like you, I don't think my wife's ever listened to enough. I actually host 3 completely separate podcasts that have nothing to do with each other. And I don't think my wife's ever listened to one of them. So I probably
I feel you, brother. I get you.
I know. I've probably done a total of, let's see, this one's at 40. The other one's at right around 35. And the other one just hit episode, I think 90 or 91. And yeah, she hasn't listened to any of them yet. So
yeah, it's funny, huh?
I tell you, wives.
I don't even want to make a comment just on the off chance she hears me right now talking. I don't want to take any trouble.
That's right. So now you also mentioned Sensu is your main style right now, but you also mentioned you blended in some other stuff. What are some of the other styles you blended in over the years and that
I had to do, I've been doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 10 years, up until COVID for sure. That kind of slows things down, at least for me. I shouldn't say for everybody, some didn't, but I chose to not partake during that lockdown year. And Sistema, I've been dabbling with that for several years now. And now since I've gotten to Raleigh, I was a really talented teacher out here, T.W. Smith, who also has a podcast, Kung Fu Podcast. Shout out to him. He's been very patient with the Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi type arts. I try to do a little bit of everything, but I don't mean to say do as in, I do all these different styles. I mean, just put myself into situations where things are done a little differently and just to see what sticks to me and what does not. And I have no intention of teaching most of these things, but really just kind of hunting for experiences just to kind of figure out, is there a slightly quicker way to get control of your breath? Is there a slightly different way for me to get over this issue I have with X, Y, or Z? Because to me, every style is just a different set of priorities and training methodologies. Ultimately, it's all either you're going to punch that guy in the face or you're not. Either you're going to choke that guy or you're not. It's not that precious to me, like, oh, that style is different than that style. I don't see it like that, really. I think if you stick around and you're an honest student, you can pretty much dig up everything from any style. But what's different is, what do you start with? And what exercises have they developed to bring out certain qualities in you? And that's what I'm fascinated by. I don't really like saying, oh, I am this style, or I just do that style. You're a person first. All the styles are just tools underneath that you're choosing to bring out different parts of you. And I know what my priorities are. And now I'm just looking for different methodologies to help me bring out those qualities. So I may say, well, I don't like Tai Chi, but I like this push hands drill as a bridge to sparring. I like that particular part of Tai Chi, for example. So that's why I'm always interested in some guy's video or some seminar near me, or anybody I can catch. Someone sees me doing a workout in the park and they want to come over and talk. I'm more than happy to, let's talk, let's share, let's see what you're into, because there might be some little tip or turn of phrase or an exercise that helps me with my cause. So share and share alike.
100%. That's why I love talking to other martial artists. I mean, I had a great experience about 15 years ago. I used to judge MMA, and I was judging an MMA fight, and one of the guys in the commission, we were just chatting before the fights, and turned out he was a boxing coach, and he had actually trained some big name boxers over the years and stuff. He trained Virgil Hill and stuff like that. And we were kind of joking. He's like, I'm too old to learn how to kick. And I go, I'll make you a deal. I'll teach you how to kick and you teach me some boxing drills. And we got together 5 days a week at 5 a.m. for 6 months. And I taught him how to kick, and he ran me through boxing drills. And it was some of the best workouts of my life. It was so much fun.
And so beautiful. It's such an organic way to meet somebody and just sort of get to know each other and then trade and make each other's lives better that way. And that's it's hard to do that, like just in a formal saying, well, I'm gonna have a business plan now, I'm gonna open up a school and hope that all these people have a great experience. But at the heart of it, it's just you meeting another guy, another human being. You kind of share some experiences, you make each other better. That's even more beautiful.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it.
And he actually wasn't a bad kicker. Once after about a month, he got I probably wouldn't have entered him in a kickboxing match, but he learned how to throw kicks pretty well. So it was fun, and we had fun. That was the important thing.
I'm sure you could throw a pretty decent punch as well. So I'm sure you both were helpful to each other and both had some skills anyway.
Definitely. So what advice would you give someone who approached you that they've never done martial arts in their life and they're thinking of getting involved and they want to know what should I look for in a school? What should I look for in an instructor, and maybe some things I should avoid?
Well, I get that question all the time. And the first thing is going to be the age. Asking for someone's child, I think, is different than asking for an adult who's going to be the actual person taking the class. But in either case, the one thing that I think is always important is prioritize the teacher first, the teacher and the culture that teacher allows in the school before you consider the style. You may say, oh, I have to do BJJ. All my friends tell me that BJJ is the greatest self-defense art in the world. But the only school near you has this really just a culture that you do not vibe with. Maybe they're a super competitive school and it's a bunch of young bucks in there, and maybe you're in your 40s and you're getting banged up too much and the teacher doesn't care and it's all go, go, go and who cares. That might turn you off of all martial arts forever because you had a bad experience. And I know people like that. I went in, they popped my shoulder in the first month I was there and I'm never going to do it again. It's like, God, that's horrible. Whereas if you say, well, if you're interested in martial arts, here's the thing. It's not really so much about the style in the beginning, because if you haven't trained at all in the beginning, no matter what art you're in, you're going to have to get to know your body better. You're going to be learning about your balance, your breath control, the feeling of competition, being able to follow directions, having the discipline to keep showing up and to work out at home and to supplement your training. All of those things are modular. They fit into any martial arts style there is. So in the beginning, I don't think it's as important what style you go sign up for. It's important that you find a vibe when you walk in where you go, I feel safe here, I feel comfortable here. So now I can let my guard down a little bit and become a good student. And again, for that first year or two, you're just going to be learning how to breathe and stand and use your body better. Then as you get through that period, you'll be smarter about, okay, now what do I really want to do? Now that I feel in touch with my body and I don't feel as afraid of my issues, do I want to stay here and keep developing? Do I actually appreciate this style? Do I need to just supplement something else a little bit on the side? Or do I now see, I think there's a whole other path that I should be taking, which is what happened to me with Taekwondo. So, so my first advice would just be, when you walk in and you talk to that teacher and you just get that vibe, like, am I safe? Are these guys seemingly inspiring and gals? Or do I feel oppressed? Do I feel like I'm going to get hurt here? Do I feel it's just not, this is not for me? Maybe someday it will be, but right now it's not. So I don't want anything that's going to keep me from making that drive to get to class. So focus on the culture first. Is that enough? Is that a good answer?
Oh, that's a great answer. No, that's definitely, that's one thing I told my guest yesterday, that after my first 4 or 5 episodes, I thought of dropping that question because I wasn't getting enough variety in answers. And then suddenly I got like a completely different answer. And then like every answer was so different. So it's just, I love it because it's an opinion. That's the one thing you just never know. And
sure,
you got to take what you get. And if people are listening to this that are interested, and hopefully they'll get a little bit from each of my guests and make a wise decision. So
yeah, I hope so. And the other thing, I don't think anyone can judge it too much. I think it's like pizza. I could tell you, hey, let me take you to the best pizza place in town. You might say, no, I don't like that pizza. I can't sit here and argue with you about it and explain to you why my opinion about this pizza is better than your opinion about it. That's impossible, because again, people are presenting one way, but their true nature might be something else. So someone might say, oh, I really want to do MMA. But when they go to the MMA gym, it's absolutely terrifying to them, and they're not ready to step in that world yet.
Right.
So but you know what? I found this Tai Chi group over here that I really liked on weekends. You go, okay, great. Good for you. To me, that's why I don't care what you start with, just get started. And then you're going to figure out along the way what fits you for real, not what you just said you want to do, but for real. What can you handle right now? And then hopefully any program is going to take you to the next step where you feel a little braver and a little bit, you can take on a bigger challenge and then maybe work up to something a little bit more intense. But in the beginning, I wouldn't judge it. You say, hey, either I like it or I don't. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to explain it to anybody. I feel comfortable here. This is where I'm signing up, and that's it. Don't have to talk about it again. Just do that.
Nice. Although if you do say pineapple goes on pizza, I'll be arguing with you till the day's end. So could do a whole podcast just on that. Come on.
Oh, well, invite me back for that one. I'm ready for you.
There we go. All right. So you've studied, most of your career and most of your martial arts life has been in traditional martial arts, self-defense based martial arts. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC, and are you a fan?
Yeah, of course. I'm absolutely a fan. I mean, combative sports, competition sports in general. I mean, if you like boxing, why not like MMA? If you like watching kickboxing, why not like MMA? If you like watching wrestling, why not like MMA? Mm-hmm. To me, it's, yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan from the first one to the current state of it. So different, but I love seeing two people put it on the line and just take big chances. Now, that said, the only downside to me is, again, I'm not an elite athlete, and most people I know are not elite athletes. So the only trick for me is always differentiating between spectator sport and participation sport. Right. I don't want people. That's why I was I was not a big fan of karate being the Olympics. I'm not a fan of traditional arts being portrayed as sports, because it starts giving off, to me, my opinion, it gives the impression that martial arts is only for young, talented, athletic types. And it should be for everyone. And as a matter of fact, it's the person who's not young, strong, and athletic who needs the martial arts more than the big athletic guy. Those guys who are in MMA now as professional fighters, they could be excelling in many different sports. Those guys are stud athletes and ladies. They're all like elite athletes. It happens that they chose the fighting arts. Good. That's fun to watch. But for anyone watching, I think it's just like me watching like Olympic gymnasts. Every time I see the Olympics and I watch gymnastics, I think, wow, they're amazing. There's no way in hell I could ever do any of that. There's no chance I'm ever going to sign up at a gymnastics school, but I sure do like watching it. So that's the participant factor. Yep. So I think that MMA attracts far more participants or spectators rather than participants, which then doesn't really help the traditional world at all. If anything, it's probably working against it. So I wish that there was some other way, and that's where YouTube videos come in and tutorials come in and online courses and classes come in, because that's for everybody. YouTube is for everybody. And that gives people like me a chance to maybe get someone's attention and say, hey, I'm not a big athletic guy, but I'm still into martial arts. And so if you're interested in martial arts, it's not just about that big sport over there with those elite guys. There's also people like me doing it. So if you like my vibe, come over and let's do it. Let's do martial arts together. So that to me is the pro side. Is it's fun to watch this as a spectator, but the downside is I don't think it scares a lot of people away, thinking, oh, that's what martial arts is nowadays. You have to do that, and it's not at all.
No, I love that answer. That's a great answer. So can you pick one or two martial artists that you truly admire, whether it's someone you've actually trained with and met, or like you mentioned Bruce Lee earlier or something like that? Is there one or two that you put on a pedestal?
Sure. Well, first of all, I admire anybody over 60 who's still doing martial arts. Give me their rundown. Oh, I started in this, now I'm doing that, then I broke this, and I had surgery on that, but I'm still going to my class. And so right off the bat, because I'm 51 now, just looking down the road, I have more and more respect for people who are still doing it, because increasingly I'm feeling the pain. I get the energy loss, the recoveries are longer. So when I see people older than I am still on the path, I don't care who they are, I'm already going like, wow, good for you. That makes me feel better too. So that's a big general one. A subheading under them would be the people who are my teachers, people who aren't famous mostly. And how can you ever have enough gratitude or respect for the people who've personally changed your life, who've opened up doors to yourself that you had no idea were even there. So I your personal teachers, I think, are always going to be your most inspiring figures. People in the movies, whatever. That's when I was a kid. That's when I was looking for role models back then. There's nobody in the movies now that look at it and go, oh, wow, I got to do that. Those are movie stars now. I understand that better. Although Bruce Lee, as someone as a human being, was breaking down barriers in real life and doing all kinds of cool things in his real life, multinational and all that kind of stuff. So he was ahead of his time in a lot of different ways. So you could hold him up still as a pretty good role model on those fronts. But yeah, so I would go with first anybody who's older than 60, anybody who's older than I am still training. Two, my teachers personally, absolutely. And outside of that, no, I respect no one else. That's it.
Nice. That's good. Well, it's funny. You mentioned people over 60. I just interviewed last week, Ron Van Cleef, who's 79 and still training, still rolling in BJJ almost daily and stuff. And just inspiring.
Absolutely. It just takes away all your excuses, because we all feel sorry for ourselves at some point. Oh, my knee's torn again. Or, oh, my shoulder's still tight. Oh, I got arthritis. It's so easy to fall into that. Yep. But what's the point of all this martial training, all this warrior spirit training, if you're down because you have to have a little brace or a Band-Aid, or you have to take an Advil once in a while? It's like that should not be enough to stop you. I'm not saying injure yourself and be reckless with your body. On the contrary, it's self-defense. Defend what you've got. But if you're not getting some benefits out of that process, you're either doing it wrong or maybe you should stop. And that's why I still talk to other martial artists. I'm still interested in being a student first before teaching, because I have to manage this now older body and and figure that stuff out. And the only people who can show me that are people older than I am. So I have to make them my first priority, to seek out the older people. There's no point going to some 25-year-old who just won some big martial arts championship and go, oh, I want to study with that guy, because he has no idea what I'm dealing with. So I would go after the older fellas who are still going at it. They're the best teachers at this point for me.
Nice. I know the whole reason, I told this a few times, the whole reason my mom got involved in martial arts over 40 and got her black belt is because she came to watch a demonstration I was in, and one of our students was a 73-year-old woman getting ready to test for her black belt. And my mom signed up the next day. So
is that right? That makes me cry.
It's like, if she can do it, I can do it. I'm like, damn right you can, Mom.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah.
Good for your whole. That's amazing.
It was cool. It's awesome. Cool. So then in all your years of martial arts, is there like one philosophy that really stands out that you keep coming back to, you instill in your own students, that's really important to you in your everyday life?
Oh boy, so many. There's so many. Bottom line at this point is show up. Just participate. Get into it. It doesn't, I think sometimes, like I said, we beat ourselves up and think, well, I'm kind of tired, so I won't go to class. Oh, I got this nagging injury, so I'm not going to go to class. Oh, I can't even work out right now. I'd only be able to sit there and watch. Yeah, well, then go and sit there and watch. Go and listen, take notes. You can still ask questions, observe. There's so many ways to learn where you're not at 100%. At this point, you're never going to be at 100%. I don't think anybody feels at 100%. There's always some emotional, psychological, or physical issue that you can lean on and say, well, here's why I'm not going to go full blast there. Here's why I'm not going to participate. But that is the biggest mistake you can make. We have very limited time. The only way to get good at anything is to put the time in. So any day that you let go by where you have not done something, and like I always say in my podcast, even a little martial arts makes life a whole lot better. And if it doesn't, then you're doing it wrong. Take that time, do 10 push-ups, throw 10 kicks, do something every day, because that little bit of time is what adds up. So that's the number one thing. Just show up. And that doesn't mean necessarily drive across town and show up at an expensive class. Show up for yourself. Show up when you wake up. hey, get into your horse stance. Do that form that you remember. Go hit the bag you got downstairs that's got dust on it. Just get into the discipline of showing up and doing something. So when you go to bed that night, you can go, well, at least I did that. And then the next day you have something you can build on, even if it's small. That's okay. We have big days, big energy, and small days with small energy. But just do a little something, because that's ultimately what builds that confidence to go, like, I am a martial artist. I've trained every day of my life for the last 30 plus years. That's where I get my confidence from. It can't be, well, I took 4 years off here and I took 2 months off for that. Oh, and good, I had to go to the holidays, so that was a month off. It's like, no, you're missing out. You're missing out.
Nice.
Show up.
Love it. All right, got a few fun ones to wrap it up here. Favorite martial arts book?
Woo, boy, there's so many. And I'll admit that the books were more important to me when I was a younger man. As I've gotten older, I'm kind of more focused on writing my own stuff, whether that's scripts or podcasts or working on a book myself. The one I did have time to read over the lockdowns, I had a little more time. I went back and I dug up My Way of Life by Gichin Funakoshi.
Nice.
And of course, I have all the classics, Book of Five Rings and Dao Ji Kundo and all these things. But that one, I it's easy to make fun of Shotokan for some people, and Gichin Funakoshi, has got sometimes a reputation of not being a real fighter and all that stuff. But again, I'm more interested in how someone was able to take an art that was just a locally known little kind of under the radar activity in Okinawa, and somehow, working through Itosu's footsteps, was able to bring that into Japan and have this become, in his lifetime, something that became kind of a worldwide phenomenon and made martial arts mainstream in the university system in other countries, and had that to be the guy telling his own story. That's why that book I thought was fascinating. Just have any insight into how did that happen? How do you go from this little hobby, a couple of old guys in your village, to making this something that the Emperor of Japan says, oh, we got to do this. And then it's being promulgated all over the world. And I just think it's a great, inspiring story, whether you like the style or you think much of him. You can't deny that he played a huge part in the history of martial arts. The Gracies have now repeated that kind of thing, being able to make a name and popularize the martial art. Krav Maga is a modern thing. Taekwondo is relatively modern. So there are all these other arts that have now been able to follow in some type of footstep to figure out, how do you share? How do you share what you love on a wider scale, especially when it's something that seems so bizarre? Are you wearing different clothes and you have these belts and you're yelling at each other and you're punching and kicking each other? How do you make that popular? How do you get that into strip malls and nowadays where kids can do this stuff? Where did that start? So My Way of Life by Gichin Funakoshi was a nice kind of walk down memory lane to see how he did that in part.
I need to reread that. I haven't read that in probably 20 years. I need to dig
yeah,
up my
exactly.
Copy. Yeah,
easy to overlook, but I thought it was interesting.
Nice. All right. So this one, you're kind of like me. You're a kid of the 80s. You're on my age. So did you have a favorite martial arts video game?
Yeah, video games, I'll tell you, quite honestly, I don't have one, only because I have a kind of a compulsive personality, and I had the first generation Atari, and or one of those early ones that had asteroids on it, and
Nice.
I could not stop playing, and I kept trying to flip that board. I don't know if the kids still do the flipping of the score thing, because it couldn't go past a certain number. It would flip. So if I had like the calluses, carpal tunnel syndrome, I couldn't get out of my bedroom, and I recognized early on, even as a teen, like, holy moly, days are going by here and I can't get out of here. I can't stop playing this. So I kind of, just like with drinking or anything else, I said, I cannot allow these things into my life because I have zero control over it. They're too addictive. So I purposely stayed away. I know there's all these cool games, and that would make it even worse. I've seen these graphics nowadays. I'm like, oh my God, I would never stop playing this if I got into it. So with all respect, sir, I am staying away from the video games.
Hey, that's fine. Hey, speaking of asteroids, man, I think my record was I actually flipped it. I played asteroid for like 5.5 straight hours and flipped it.
Oh my God.
I was back when I was like probably 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, you understand. You understand sickness.
Oh yeah, it was fun, man. It was a new generation. It was fun. So, all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Favorite martial arts TV show?
TV show. All right. I'm going to go, oh boy, TV show. Again, the ones that mean the most to you are the ones that, because you were young and impressionable. So I'm going to go with two that maybe most people wouldn't say. I'm going to say there was a show, well, of course, The Equalizer, the original one. And I consider that a martial arts show because he was some kind of special ops, whatever, but he was old and not in great shape, but he dressed well and he drove the Jaguar. And I just thought every once in a while he would pull up one of these episodes where his tactics were excellent. He'd pull up the gun at the right time, go to the right angle, or he'd grab someone in a quick wrist lock. He was just doing these really quick things, even though he didn't look like a martial artist. And again, I've always thought martial arts should be for everyone, not just some stud. So I love the fact that there was like this old guy who just with his voice and his good clothing and a quick little move once in a while, you'd go, wow, this guy's dangerous. So I like the Equalizer.
Well, and for martial arts fans, you remember who played his son on that show? It was William Zabka from Karate Kid.
Holy smoke.
Yeah. He wasn't in that many episodes, but yeah, William Zabka played his son.
The trivia on you. I'm bowing down.
I still watch reruns of Equalizer, man. I love that show.
That whole show, Stuart Copeland soundtrack, that show just, man, I mean, the last season they made him kind of stop wearing the suit up and it got weird. But, and the other show, since you're a real aficionado here, the other show I'm going to go with, also not very popular and got canceled pretty fast, was Stingray. I think Nick Mancuso, I think, was the actor in that.
Wow, I forgot about that one.
Remember that show?
Yeah, I do.
Great opening, like one of those Mike Post jobs, and he drove a classic Corvette Stingray, of course, black. And, he's like the typical kind of cool hero dressed in all black in the shades. But again, he was not a big guy. He was just like a smart guy. And there were a couple of scenes in that movie. I remember in particular, you got me going. There was one particular scene where he was going undercover as like a day worker out in the fields trying to infiltrate whatever the heck was going on. And he ends up beating up a couple of the farm hands or whatever the hell was going on, smugglers that were involved. And the head guy brings him into the office and says something like, I can't remember exactly, but he says something like, so, who are you and why are you here? Because you're not a farmhand. And he's trying to play it like, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, you just beat up a couple of my best guys and there are no marks on your hand. You used open hands. So nobody here does that. So what is that about? So I love the idea that this guy was like such a great martial artist that he didn't even have to use his punches. He was somehow wiping these guys out slick. It was just, I don't know. There was something slick about that guy Stingray on that TV show. I'm getting all excited. I got to go back and find it on YouTube or something.
The reason I remember it is because I'll pretty much any show that Stephen J. Cannell did. Stephen J. Cannell did some amazing shows in the 80s and 90s.
There you go. Yep. And this was one of those less successful ones, but it made an impression. Like, oh, yeah, he's like a real Batman. He's got the black outfit, the black card. He can fight, but he's not,
I'll tell you, I haven't searched, but you might be able to find it on the app or the website. It's called Tubi, Tubi? So I've actually found some other Stephen J. Cannell shows on there. I found remember the show Marker? Richard Grieco. Wow. Yeah, Richard Grieco and Marker. But I know like that one and some other Stephen J. Cannell stuff are on that site. So I've actually gone back and watched a few of those old shows.
I wrote that down. I will absolutely follow up on that.
Nice. All right. So favorite martial arts movie?
Oh, brother. Okay. I don't know if it counts or not, but I'm going to go Rocky 3.
Ooh.
I don't know if that counts as martial arts. It's boxing, so what the heck? I'm going to throw it in there. It's a fighter's tale. But Rocky 3, I think, has all the secrets of life to it. I think that movie is phenomenal. That's the one with Mr. T.
Yep.
And going back to a train with Apollo Creed. There's so many little lines in there and moments in there where you go, wow. I just feel that's a great movie. And I'm also going to go on the other extreme. I'll go to Kung Fu Panda. Because as I recall, if I'm remembering the movie correctly, the message at the end, and I won't spoil it if anyone wants to go watch it, but the message by the end of the movie was exactly right, whether you're a super sophisticated martial artist or not. It's just special sauce. What the special sauce is in martial arts, what the secret formula is. Kung Fu Panda, I think, presented that message really, really well.
Nice. I just thought of a new question. I think I'm going to add in a new question that I'm going to start asking guests. How about favorite cheesy martial arts movie?
Oh, that's easy. That's Out for Justice.
Oh, really? Okay.
I
would actually go with Surf Ninjas myself.
Wow. Oh, I got to look that one up.
You've never seen that? Ernie Reyes Jr., Ernie Reyes Sr. I think Leslie Nielsen might be in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually met Ernie Reyes Sr. and Ernie Reyes Jr. right around the time that movie was being released. They were at a tournament and they were kind of promoting it and stuff. And I met them both, and it's so cheesy, but so good.
Wow. There was also that one, now you're going really cheesy. I was still kind of going mainstream, but that one, what was his name? Bart Connor, the U.S. gymnast, Jim Cotta.
Oh, Jim Cotta. Oh,
is that the name of it? Jim Cotta?
Yep. God, that was bad.
There's like a bar in an alley and he's like fighting people by flipping around the pole. Oh my God, I love that.
I wouldn't even call that cheesy. That was just horrible. I mean, that was like that was bad, like No Retreat, No Surrender. I mean, when the ghost of Bruce Lee comes back and trains the guy to fight Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's just horrible.
Hey, we all like different toppings on our pizza. I'm not gonna make fun of someone else's cheesy favorite.
Well, speaking of a bad and actually I found this on Tubi and rewatched it. I hadn't watched it in 30 years. I don't know if you remember the movie Rooftops with Jason Gedrick, the guy from Iron Eagle, but it was the first movie I believe that had capoeira in it. They also they actually called it combat dancing in there, but horrible movie. but it's from the 80s, so I watched it again.
Wow, so way back then, capoeira was being represented in the 80s. Wow.
Yeah, this was probably 3-4 years before Only the Strong came out, I think.
Mark Dacascos,
yep,
right?
Mark Dacascos, yep. Yeah, that was Only the Strong.
Yeah, I remember that one. That one, okay, that's fair. True.
Yeah, see me, I'll watch any martial arts movie, any martial arts TV show. And some of the best martial arts TV shows, I think, are the ones that lasted like one season. They got canceled, something. I guess Martial Law was like 3 seasons with Sammo Hung, but like The Master.
I remember that.
Yeah, The Master in the early 80s, Street Justice. Yeah.
I worked as an extra on that show, and I went out to LA on
Are you serious?
Really? Yeah, I was on the set on one of those shows.
So were you on the season with Arsenio Hall or the one before him?
When you go an extra, they just bring you in on the shuttle. You get dumped off. You're in your scene. You leave. I tried to watch that show. I think it was I only caught a couple of the episodes. I don't remember Arsenio Hall in either one of them. So I'm thinking it was the early.
Yeah, I think he came in on like season 2 or 3 or something like that. It only lasted like 3 seasons, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Sammo Hung's an amazing martial artist. I really enjoyed that show.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I forgot about that. Holy smokes! Wow, memory lane. Your standards are far lower than mine. I really respect that.
Definitely. See, one of these times I just need to do an episode. I need to get like 3-4 guys on here and just talk about martial arts movies and TV shows and nothing else. And we could probably go for like 3 hours talking about that stuff.
Wow. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's
so much
fun.
Man.
You know everything. Wow, I'm way outclassed.
I grew up in the Midwest in a small Minnesota town, and there was literally nothing to do, especially in the winter. So we'd go to the VHS store, rent a lot of movies, go to anything at the movie theater, whatever limited channels we had and stuff. And anything with martial arts, I didn't. The first big one, of course, was Karate Kid. That's the whole reason I got involved in martial arts. Because of Karate Kid. But I watched all the Kung Fu theater stuff and any of those. It was so much fun.
Sure. Well, thanks for supporting the whole industry. You're making a lot of people paying for a lot of mortgages.
That's good. That's good, man. Well, Ando, seriously, man, I want to thank you, man. This has been so much fun. I so much enjoyed having you on the show. And like I said, definitely, I will put a link for your podcast and anything else you want me to put a link for in the notes. And if you, hopefully if you get a school up and running and stuff, and a couple of years from now, we'll come back on and talk about what else has been going on with you over the years. So.
I'd be honored, sir. Thank you so much for all you're doing. Your shows, congratulations, and thanks for all you're doing to help spread martial arts out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.